It is safe to say that most men have an attention deficit. Um, I was speaking to a dude at work, kind of a techie, nerdy type dude, eccentric for sure, loud, boisterous. You know, definitely doesn't reek of like sex appeal by any means, but he said something to me that made me wonder, like, how many dudes feel this way. And he said, bro, he's like, I never get compliments from anyone, let alone a woman. And if I did, I'd remember forever. I'd remember a year from now if someone complimented my sweater. And sure, maybe there's a lot to be said about what he could do to perhaps get those compliments. But I started thinking about that too. And I said, well, when do I get compliments? And most times when I do get compliments, it's usually on my dress, right? And it's usually from other men. It's hardly ever from women. Even physique-wise, it's usually from other men. It's never from women. So even me, I definitely think I have an attention deficit for sure. Doesn't bother me though. I think some guys do need that reassurance. However, I think in my case, it's because of other reasons why, right? People don't want to inflate my ego further than it probably already is, right? It's maybe the thought process. But you have to keep in mind, there is sort of like a gaslighting being had at the moment. Name calling, things of that nature. But I remember that in particular, and this was interesting, it was very interesting to kind of see it play out in the open. And I remember a friend of mine, she says, hey, I have a friend I want you to meet. And I was like, okay, didn't really ask many questions because I wanted to see like what was she going to present me as or to who. And so we get to the spot and I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. So optically, this is what she thinks I can get / deserve. I wasn't exactly sure, but it made me think like, man, this is interesting how she was trying to get one up on me by trying to hook me up with someone that had no business ever even entertaining the idea with me. But I just thought to myself, like, this is crazy. This is outrageous that it would be the equivalent of like you introduced a pretty girl to a guy that had no job and had poor posture and was overweight. It felt like that for me. That was the equivalent as a guy who felt like I had most of my stuff together. To be introduced to someone like that was like crazy. I was like, bro, are you serious? Like, but then it made me think like, okay, like some women want to get the upper hand and if that means that you lose in the process, then so be it. And it just made me realize a lot about how women think. And this is the thing. And it made me also realize that women don't want you to ever find out the value that you actually have. It would not be in their interest for you to understand the position you're in or to understand that you're in a position that you can dictate the terms. I think most people would rather you not ever find out and they want you oblivious. It makes sense because then I've seen a lot of dudes and I've met a lot of guys and I think to myself like, bro, is this really the best you think you can get? And genuinely, I think some dudes have been led to believe that, yes, this is it, right? They've accepted the terms of engagement. They've decided that this was their ceiling. This is as good as it's going to get. And it's a tragedy on many accounts. And look, the reality is most guys do feel invisible to most women. There's so many guys that get unnoticed, that go unnoticed their entire lifetimes. And it's a sad thing to see and witness in real time. And I just wish that more dudes understood their value. If you optimize for the things that let's go into it. If you optimize for the things that I think will add up and pay dividends in the long run, a lot of it is not, some of it is physical, but a lot of it is mental. So obviously the first thing, is get your finances in order. Okay. Acquire some skills, build intrigue, have interesting things to say and do interesting things. And I think that will pay off in the long run. And if you stack those wins up, eventually it's going to be hard to be ignored for certain. And I'm telling you, as a guy that kind of started, I would say I was a bottom feeder. I was a catfish. To go from that to where I am, I can tell you for a fact that I've been able to build myself over time and seen what happens when you decide to be an agent and have agency in your life and see where that takes you, see how far you can get. And so I think that if you do that, then you will ultimately be able to dictate terms and decide what you want and what you're looking for in a person. But anyhow, I hope this helps, and